now coming to you via tape from St. Vladimir Church. It's the program you've been waiting for, available only on a special YouTube channel, the St. Vladimir YouTube channel. It's the Vladcast program, and I'm your host, John Hill, here with Father Gregory. How are you, Father?
I'm good, Sean. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm wearing black today. We're both
good.
wearing
I
black.
like that. Black goes with everything. Yeah, good choice.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about what to wear.
It's very slimming also.
Yeah. Okay, so how have you been, Father?
Good. Yeah, no complaints.
Okay, how's your family?
Family's good. Glory to God. Yeah, wrapping up the first half of the school year. Everybody's doing well.
Great. And how was your trip to Cincinnati?
It was nice. It was nice. Good to be together with family for Thanksgiving.
Your sister?
Yep.
Great.
It was great. Thank you.
And so here we are talking about December, the last month of 2015.
Correct.
The day after tomorrow is the entry into the temple. One of my favorite of the great feasts, for a reason you probably are aware. That was the day that I was chrismated maybe 5 years ago.
It's been 5 years. Wow.
Yeah. So it's very important to my spiritual journey, and yeah.
It's a great day. It's a really nice feast. I really, really like this feast a lot.
What do you like most about it?
What do I like about this feast? Well, what I really like about this feast is to see how Saints Joachim and Anna fulfilled their promise. You know, we make a lot of promises to God, I think, and I don't think that we fulfill all of those promises. It seems good at the time, but then once the sort of crisis is past, we tend to forget. And so I think this is really good for us to see this example of making a promise to God and keeping it.
You ever do that?
Keep one?
No, make a promise. Yeah, make a promise and keep it. If you want.
I try.
Yeah,
I try to keep them. But I think that when we're in a crisis kind of situation, it's very easy to sort of say, well, you know, if this happens, then of course I'll do this. And we often don't. And sometimes our certain promises are not reasonable, and therefore we really shouldn't keep those. But I think that it's good to see how the history of our salvation includes a crisis, a promise, and the fulfillment of that promise.
Now, can we read about all of this, the entire story in the Gospels, or are there pieces of it that are extra canonical?
Well, actually, this one, it's both. This is a mixed one, but there's quite a bit of it actually in the scripture. This one. So this is a feast that I think that for all of us, it's one that is not enough attended to. You know, first of all, one of the most beautiful hymns of the church is sung at the vigil at this feast. We begin to sing from the canon of the Nativity of Christ. Yeah. Christ is born, give ye glory. How beautiful is that? It's kind of the beginning, in a way, of coming closer to the Nativity. We began the fast last week, and now we are, through the liturgical services, we're coming closer to this time. And this feast really is almost part of that, if you think about it, because Joachim and Anna, they bring the young Mary to the temple, and there she grows up, and they pass on to the next life, and shortly after that she reaches that age where she needs to be married, and well, we all know how the rest of it goes. So it's really important part. I think it's already the beginning, the first few steps of the Nativity, and I really like that about the feast.
Father Thomas Hopko writes exactly about that. The first time that hymn is heard in, he has a book, The Winter Pascha. Yeah, I like to read that. I like to read, maybe not the whole thing, a little bits every Nativity Lent. It's really, it's also one of the things I kind of look forward to.
Absolutely. It's a great time of year. And it really, but when we start to hear the hymns, see, that's to me like, okay, that's where we're going. And maybe that's why the church allows that to be sung so early on in the feast, the fast, to sort of say to us, okay, you know, like this is not just an abstract abstention from meat and dairy products. There is the focus, that's where we're going. And I just love that about the feast.
But it is a fast, though.
It is.
So
Yeah, we're fasting.
yeah,
Well, of course, the Nativity Lent is not as strict a fast as the Great Lent.
fish on the weekend.
A lot of fish is
Lobster
allowed.
anytime?
Well, lobster, I suppose you can always have anytime. But the sort of nature of the fast is not as strict, and that's okay. We need the strict, we need the less strict. We have to have the wisdom of the church being guided by the Holy Spirit sort of gives us the stricter, the less strict. This one's less strict, but nonetheless, it's a long fast. And I think for us in our times, it can be a real struggle because in the Western Christian approach, all of the celebration of Nativity kind of happens right until the feast, and then it's over. Whereas none of ours happens really before the feast, except a little bit in the church, like with the singing of the earmos of the canon. It's all after, so we have to kind of try to balance that, and that's not always easy. You know, it can be done, but it's just not easy. So I think that even though the fast is not strict, nonetheless, it has plenty of challenges for us, which are good for our salvation.
Indeed. Okay, then what else do we have in December?
Oh, lots.
Saint John of Damascus, a very important saint, a doctor of the church.
An important saint for the Vladcast, I would say.
Yeah, because that's my
That is your patron
heavenly
saint.
protector.
Exactly. So I think Saint John should be better known.
Yes.
I mean, he is well known on some level, but on another level, not well enough. He's one of the most important fathers of the church, a great theologian, had such an interesting life. You know, grew up with the son of the Muslim, you know, Caliph, and so just such an interesting life, and such an important theologian for the church. So I think that we need to know more about St. John, and we'll be posting his life and a lot of information about him on the website coming up this month. But yeah, very important saint.
He shares a day with Saint Barbara.
He does. Who's another important saint.
What about her?
Well, we like her too.
Yeah.
And it's almost too bad that they share that same day, but you know, this is how the Lord arranged it, so it must be good for our salvation. But we have St. Barbara this month, we have St. Catherine this month. I mean,
Isn't Sava coming around about the same time?
We do. We have St. Sava, very important. I mean, we use the Savai Typicon in the Russian church, so, I mean, comes from his monastery. So December is chocked full of very important saints, male and female saints, and a lot of prophets too.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, I think, also, of course, kind of makes some sense because we're coming to the Nativity, and there's a lot of prophecies about Christ's Nativity. So, but yeah, a lot of prophets in this month as well.
Saint Nicholas.
Saint Nicholas, another really important one. His winter feast and the sort of main feast, his repose, is coming up on the 19th. And for us, well, we do a children's liturgy on that one, and that's a lot of fun. Kids sing, the kids take care of the kiosk, the kids only serve in the altar, they ring the bells. Everything is the young people, and I think that that's really, they prepare the food for afterwards. I think that's really important. The church, the parish, needs to be something more than this place that my parents bring me to. It needs to be a place where I participate, where this is a place where I make a difference, where I have a duty. And when we focus like this 4 times a year on the young people, I think it's really great. So I hope everyone will join us for St. Nicholas. It's a Saturday this year, which is great. So as long as the weather is not atrocious, we'll have a procession, and we'll have gifts for the kids, and so it's everybody likes gifts. So I think it's one of the really fun days of the year at St. Vladimir's when we have a children's liturgy.
Okay. You know, another fun day in December? That's the bake sale.
I am really looking forward to the bake sale.
It's back.
It's back. It's back.
After a hiatus.
Almost with a vengeance, you could say. Yeah, it's back.
You gonna bake something?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Well, I'm kind of the assistant.
Oh, okay.
You know, so
You get to lick the spoon?
no licking of spoons, because none of this stuff is Lenten, so we have to just hope that it tastes good for our customers, but they buy it, so it must. Well, you know, when my wife makes her stuff, a lot of times I get to help.
They do make those little Russian pies with the cabbage inside.
Mm-hmm.
Those are Lenten.
Oh yeah, some of what we have to offer is Lenten, for sure. But some of what we have isn't, and I think mostly everything my wife makes is not. But anyway, it's tasty and it's fun, and it's a great opportunity for us to kind of interact with our community, kind of like the festival, but on a much smaller scale. So yeah, I think it's great, and I'm looking forward to it. And that's the 12th. That's coming up fast.
And I like those little pies a lot.
I do too.
They should make more.
They should. The cabbage is good for
Never
you
make
also.
enough.
It's healthy.
All right, so St. Herman.
Saint Herman. Saint Herman, the enlightener of America, another really important saint that falls during December. And we have a parish in our deanery named after Saint Herman, and so we don't usually serve liturgy here. We usually serve liturgy there in Lake Odessa, kind of between Lansing and Grand Rapids. But we will have the evening services here. So some marking of the St. Herman feast will be here, and our youth groups are named in honor of St. Herman, and so I think that's appropriate. So on the 24th in the evening we'll have Vespers and Matins, but then liturgy will be at the Lake Odessa Church.
Okay. I remember coming to a St. Herman liturgy about 5 years ago.
Yeah, sometimes we would do it here, but it just, well, it's nice to be able to go to them, and as long as the weather is good, we're doing that, unless it's a Sunday, in which case we have it here.
Of course. Well, what else? I think that's it. Should we go home?
No, there's much more. Before we have a bake sale, we have a midnight liturgy.
You're kidding.
No.
Wow.
Yeah, no, we are going to have a midnight liturgy from the 11th into the 12th.
Oh, I get it. You're so good at keeping everybody happy, Father.
Well, I don't know about that, but it's important for us to serve liturgy and,
And sell cookies too.
and sell cookies. So in order to do that, we will have the all English service. It'll be a midnight liturgy this month, and that's fun. Those are really fun. Of course, there's not going to be kids there, most likely, or very few, but it's a really nice opportunity for people to come, and you really feel like you're touching, in a way, the Christians during the time of persecution, especially right after Christ, when they were worshiping in the middle of the night and they were kind of hiding in caves and all of this. When you're at the midnight liturgy, usually the only one we experience is Pascha. But these others, it's very quiet.
Unless you're a monk.
Right, unless you're a monk, and a lot of monasteries have midnight liturgies. I know, especially the ones in the cities now, often have them because that's an opportunity kind of for the brothers to have a quiet liturgy together. But it's really a beautiful feeling to be in the church at that time, the same time that the ancient Christians had to worship because they were in fear of their lives. We're not in fear of our lives, but it's really nice to kind of keep watch with them. The feeling that you get at a midnight liturgy, it's just different. It's very peaceful. It's something that everybody should experience.
Okay.
And not just on Pascha, but otherwise as well. And I guess we usually do one or two during the year, and it just works out the way the schedule works out this month. Saturdays are really, really full, and so we'll do midnight liturgy before the bake sale.
What can you tell viewers about the lectionary for December? What kind of readings are there, and what are some highlights maybe?
Well, we're still working through Luke in the Gospel. We're in the 1 Timothy right now. No, actually we started 2 Timothy, I think, already this week. And there are some really interesting readings there. Timothy, the St. Paul's epistles to Timothy are really interesting. For instance, he talks about, what are sort of the things that someone should, what are the sort of skill set that a bishop should have? What should a deacon have? He talks a lot about really interesting things that we wouldn't necessarily think that maybe the apostles took the time to do, but to sort of set very good order.
They were managers.
They were, and this is these are very, very interesting. So, on the calendar that we send out every year, the yearly calendar, which will be coming out again very soon, there's a reading for every day from the epistle and from the gospel. Generally, they're not long. It's true in Holy Week there's a lot because there's so much to cover. But outside of Holy Week, it's pretty much one epistle and one gospel. They're not usually more than 10 or 12 verses. But boy, if you just read that little piece every day, you read almost the whole New Testament in 1 year.
Do they ever publish the readings in that order?
Yes, you can find them in that order. There are I've not seen it in English, but in Russian it's readily available.
What's it called?
That's an excellent question. I don't remember what it's
All
called. You can find Gospels that are sort of basically written in that order. Sometimes even the Gospels that are in the churches have that. They're laid out in that way. It's not from Matthew to the beginning of Matthew to the end of John. It has the pieces according to the way they're used in the year. You don't see those too often, but occasionally you do.
They're handy, I'll bet.
Very nice. And the every year it's published in Russian. And I was thinking about that. Boy, wouldn't it be nice if we could have that in English? So if there's somebody watching who's willing to take on that project, I would be happy to help. To take the calendar for the year, and there's always a few adjustments.
Oh, it's different every year?
Basically the same, but let's say, Pascha is really late. It means that Great Lent starts late. And so sometimes there's some repeating towards the beginning of Great Lent. Or sometimes it just sort of depends. There's a few little things that change. It's basically the same, but it sort of depends on when Pascha falls and how these things all come together. But anyway, it's not really that hard to do, but it would be really great to do it. The first year would be hard. I mean, it would just be a lot of work. After that, it would be all tweaking. So there's no reason that we couldn't publish that. It's just a matter of resources.
Excellent idea, Father.
Thank you. I like it. So hopefully somebody will see this and be inspired, and will contact...
the grant.
Well, that would be even great if we could pay somebody to do it. But even if somebody was willing to volunteer, I think we could do it.
Yeah, it's that movable part of the year that just keeps things interesting.
Yeah. It does. So never a dull moment as an Orthodox Christian, and this is just another indication of that.
Great. Okay, well, let's see. Catherine and Mercurius, you don't want to forget them.
No, can't forget them. When we talked about St. Barbara and two of the really important young women saints, they were not very old when they were martyred, and I think they're a real good example of, having a high standard and not being willing to lower that standard for yourself. And I think that especially in our society, there's a lot of objectification of women, and I think that somebody like this can be a really good example for a young girl. We don't have martyrdom going on now, but sometimes we need to see somebody like that and ask the prayers of somebody like that who was willing to go even to their death because of the standard that they had for themselves as a Christian. I think that's helpful. So St. Catherine is a really important saint in that way, and it's interesting, just like St. Barbara has St. John and they're on the same day. St. Catherine, young girl, has this huge, physically and also spiritually, second great martyr that she's commemorated with, St. Mercurius, who must have been a giant.
He was a warrior.
He was a warrior, and he was very tall and just a very big man and a very successful warrior, but accepted Christ. And I think that he's also very interesting to see what a dichotomy. And sometimes it's funny, you have the icon of St. Catherine and St. Mercurius painted together, and they're exactly the same size. Well, of course that wasn't true.
They are.
Yes, but for physically they were very different. But anyway, nice to have on one day this young woman who struggled for Christ and this very great warrior who also struggled for Christ. Very different people, but shows that there are many paths to the heavenly kingdom. Every path in our life can lead there as long as we allow that.
Indeed. And, well, I think my well has run dry.
Okay. I would only like to say one other thing, which is maybe, it's not that important, but it's interesting. People have in their minds that the weekends of this fast are always fish days. And that is true until you get to the 20th of December on the old calendar. So when you get closer to Christmas...
That's in the January?
Yeah, it's the sort of beginning of January. So often the last weekend is not with fish. It starts to get a little stricter as you get closer.
Why do they take the fish away, Father?
Well, it gets stricter as you get closer to prepare more for Christ's incarnation. And even the day before is a very strict fast day. In theory, people don't eat until the first star. Now, of course, in the northern hemisphere, and we live pretty far north. That first star comes pretty early. But in any case, it's an interesting fact for those who are interested in such things, that after December 20th and further on, there is no fishes allowed. So December 20th on the old calendar, so that's the very beginning of January. So we reflect that in our calendar that was published. So just sort of a reminder.
Shrimp.
Shrimp is good.
Or
And
octopus.
Octopus also. If it doesn't have a backbone, you can eat it. But we should try to keep to the spirit of it also. So a little octopus, but not too much.
Right.
Good.
Exactly. Okay.
I think
That's oh, we should, Boyd, we have another, we should call our producer and see if we have another minute or two. We have to look back on 2015. What are the highlights? Quickly, let's run them down. This is
maybe
our
we should do a whole show.
Maybe we should.
I think we should. I think we should. We should do a whole show on the highlights of 2015, because I don't think that we can fit it into a couple of minutes.
You're right.
We had a lot. And it was a great year, and I'm really looking forward to 2016, because that's our 35th anniversary as a parish. So we are planning big things.
Big party?
Big things for the July 28th. So please mark your calendars, ask for the day off, plan to be at St. Vladimir's. It's a Thursday this year, even though it was a Tuesday last year.
I'll cook fish again.
Excellent.
On the grill.
Good, because we will have, God willing, several bishops will be joining us. And I think it's going to be really something wonderful. So please mark your calendars for July 28th, 27th, and 28th, 2016, and 35th anniversary of our St. Vladimir Parish.
Excellent.
Great.
Thanks again for joining me here, as usual, on the Vladcast program.
Thank you, John.
You're
Looking
welcome.
forward to January and to our highlights of 2015 show.
Yes, the St. Vladimir 2015 recap special. Look for that, and look for, yeah.
I love it.
Vladcast is taped before a live studio audience of 1.
We go for quality, not quantity.
Yes. Watch for us for the December Vladcast, and we'll see you.